Hey guys, how are you? Okay, it's Martin here again, and I'm going to talk in this video about relative scales in music. And we're going to see a little bit, a few examples regarding chords. What chords do relative scales use? Okay, so first of all, what are relative scales? Well, relative scales are always in pairs. There's always one major scale and one minor scale that we call relative. And why is that? Well, first of all, they have the same key signature, and therefore they use pretty much the same notes. In fact, they use the same notes with a few little exceptions. For example, C major, you get C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and A minor, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. So, as they have the same notes, they have the same chords. That's the cool thing about relative scales. So, it's very, very easy to play in between those two scales, those relative scales. You can play in A minor and playing in A minor and C major. It's very easy to go from one to the other because they have the same notes. But said that, I'm going to add this very, very important exception, which is, you may have seen it in the last video about diatonic chords in a minor scale. The main exception was the fifth chord in a minor scale. If we were playing in A minor, our fifth chord was E, starting in E. But if we used the notes from the scale, this E minor, what we call natural scale, which were the white keys of the keyboard, the fifth chord was minor. But remember that the fifth chord is the one that we call dominant chord, and it has to have a lot of tension towards A. And this minor chord didn't have much tension towards A. So what people did back then, in the Renaissance and even before in the Middle Ages, is that they transformed that chord. They added this G sharp. They transformed it into a major chord. That minor chord, they transformed it into a major chord. Okay? So it had much more tension towards A. And even you can put a major seventh, or major with seventh, a dominant chord, what we call a dominant chord, which is a major chord with a seventh, minor seventh, is E, G sharp, B, D, and has much more tension towards A. Okay? So that is the main exception in this thing of relative scales. What I would ask now is, how do we know if we play with relative scales, in which of those two we are playing? Are we playing in C major or are we playing in A minor? How do we know? Well, how we know is using what I said before, this fifth chord. Mainly when you play this E major chord with this G sharp or E major seventh, it's kind of like you're thinking in some way in A minor. And when you play the fifth chord from C, which is a G or G7, it's kind of like you are thinking in C. Even though you could solve somewhere else, you could solve even in A minor. You don't have to solve always 5-1, you could solve 5-6. But then at some point you're going to get to 1, to the rest, to the root chord. So let's see a little introduction, which is very, very well known. It's from Andean music, from Peru, Bolivia, and the north of Argentina, which is kind of like this. Now now I'm playing 5, thinking in C. 5, 1, so G, C. And then 5, 1, but thinking in A. I'm playing 5, 1 in C, 5, 1 in A. So see that, maybe you may see that it sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty good in some way. And we are playing kind of like in two different keys, in C and in A. So this is the cool thing about what we call relative scales, is that you can play in both. It's kind of like you play in between both. So, good. So how do we know if we are playing in C or we are playing in A? Well, because of this fifth chord. If we put E7th, it's kind of like we are thinking in A. If we put this G7th, it's kind of like we're thinking in C. Okay? Good. So one little more thing. What I do to play in relative scales is kind of like thinking a bit before playing what are the main chords of each of those scales, the major one and the minor one. Remember that the main chords were 1, 4 and 5, okay? Rest subdominant and dominant. So in major scale the main chords were 1, C, 4, F and 5, G. Are always major. The main chords in the major scale are always major. That's very good to know, to remember. And in the minor scale, 1 A minor, D minor 4, and G, E or E7th 5. So in the minor scale, 1 and 4 are minor, and the fifth chord is major 7th. Okay. So one little more example. Now I'm going to play 4, 5, 1 in major scale, and 4, 5, 1 in minor scale. In this case, C major and A minor, okay? So 4, so 4, 5, 1. Now I'm thinking in C. It's a very common progression, this 4, 5, 1. So I'm thinking pretty clear in C. And then 4, 5, 1, I'm thinking in A. It's pretty clear that too. So in some way you could say that you're playing in two different keys, but it sounds good, well, because they are relative. They share chords, and it's very easy to go from one to the other. So you can solve in A, but you could solve in C if you wanted. It's very easy. You just put the fifth chord of C or a little progression. 2, 5, 1 in C, and then you just end up in C. Okay? So that's the cool thing about this. And then of course you had, I would say that is the main thing, to remember the main chords. 1, 4 and 5 are major in a major scale, 1 and 4 minor in a minor scale, and 5 major or major 7. And with that you can play a lot of songs, many songs in relative keys. So I hope you just play as if it was a game and enjoy it. And then of course remember that you had your substitute chords. In A minor, the 6th chord is what we call a substitute for the first. Play 1, 6, 4, 5, 1, 6. I did A minor, F, which is 6, 4, A minor, E, 5th. So I'm thinking in A. Then A minor, F, G, which is 5th for C, and I solved in C. So there's sections in which you're kind of like, you don't really know if you're playing in A minor or in C. When you know pretty clear is when you put the fifth chord of each of those. That is pretty clear that you are thinking G7, I'm thinking in C, even though I could solve somewhere else. Okay, so to make it a little bit, to stop here, I would say that I encourage you to play with these things as if it was a game. Just I don't know, play whatever you want. You can play songs, but you can just play as if it was a game. I don't know what I'm playing. Whatever, okay? Just play. Play as if it was a game, because it is a game. And I hope you enjoyed, and I hope it's been useful. And see you soon, guys. Goodbye.